It all started in aisle 7 of the supermarket, next to the slightly suspicious display of imported olives. Dexter, my ex, thought this was the perfect moment to propose. "Luna, will you—" "Wait, why are you grabbing a shopping cart?" I asked, one eyebrow raised. "Because, Dexter," I said, strapping myself into the cart like a superhero about to take flight, "I am officially breaking up with you, and I refuse to walk away from aisle 7 like a normal human." Dexter, who wore a bow tie that screamed, "I watch romantic comedies on loop," looked horrified. "You can't just break up with me in a shopping cart," he shouted, dramatically waving a bouquet of slightly squished roses. "Oh, I can," I said, pushing the cart down the polished linoleum runway. I swerved dramatically around a bewildered old lady who nearly toppled her stack of canned tomatoes. In fact, I'm making it a performance, a spectacle, something to be remembered forever. By the time I slammed into the imported olives, Dexter was crying, which in his defense, he always did when life inconvenienced him even slightly. "But Luna, I thought we were compatible." I paused, raising a single finger in a masterclass of comedic timing. "Compatible, Dexter? Compatible is when you can tolerate someone's obsession with Star Wars Lego sets. Compatible is when you don't propose next to the pickles while I'm holding a cart like a chariot. You are not compatible. Goodbye." With that, I vaulted myself out of the cart, landed on the tile floor with the grace of a newborn giraffe, and exited the store to the applause of an imaginary crowd. Dexter was left kneeling among the olives, still sobbing, still bewildered, still convinced the universe had personally wronged him. That, my friends, was the last time I saw Dexter before the wedding. And trust me, his vengeance would be memorable. Fast forward 3 years. I was now engaged to Max, a man who somehow managed to be charming, handsome, and slightly clumsy without ever tipping over a supermarket display. Max was everything Dexter wasn't: steady, witty, and able to survive a small dog chasing him around the apartment without breaking into tears. As the wedding day approached, Max and I sat down with our Chaos Task Force, aka our wedding guests. We knew Dexter would appear. We all knew it. It wasn't a question of if, it was a question of how spectacularly ridiculous he tried to ruin the day. "So," Max said, trying to tie his bow tie, which somehow kept transforming into a paper airplane, "we're sure Dexter is coming, right?" "Absolutely," I said, sipping my champagne like a seasoned general. "And everyone here is ready." Nina, my maid of honor and unofficial prank coordinator, grinned. Locked and loaded. I even dyed some glitter neon pink so it glows under the lights. He won't know what hit him. Tommy, the 7-year-old ring bearer, bounced with excitement, while Biscuit, his hyperactive golden retriever, tugged at his shoelaces. "Can Biscuit do the confetti part?" Tommy asked, eyes sparkling. I raised my hand. Yes, Biscuit is officially on chaos duty. Grandma Mabel, sweet but unpredictably clumsy, sat in her rocking chair knitting a scarf that looked suspiciously like a cat. If Dexter tries anything, he's getting a side eye of doom. That's my superpower. "Perfect," I said. "Everyone knows the plan. The ex is going to try sabotage, cake tipping, karaoke whore, the works. And we are going to survive. More than survive. We're going to make it legendary." Dexter, I knew, would not just show up with normal chaos. He was the kind of man who considered spilling punch an art form. I imagined him now, polishing his whoopee cushions, aligning balloons for maximum ceiling disaster, and maybe rehearsing a dramatic karaoke solo in front of his mirror. And he did show up. Of course he did. The ceremony began innocently enough. Guests sat primly, smiling, but all eyes darted towards the entrance like hawks. And there he was, Dexter, in a suit that looked like it had been stolen from a clown college, sunglasses perched at a suspicious angle, holding a backpack that rattled ominously. Max whispered to me, "Remember, stay calm. Everything is part of the plan." I nodded. Of course, calm as a cat who is secretly plotting revenge. Dexter tried to sneak behind the flower girl, but Nina intercepted him with a subtle glitter blast from a handheld cannon. He froze, glitter sticking to his hair, sunglasses, and bow tie. The crowd snickered politely. It was a warm-up for what was to come. Then came Biscuit, who immediately interpreted Dexter as a new toy to chase. Chaos officially began. Dexter screamed, tripping over the flower girl's basket, sending petals and faux butterflies everywhere. I clapped once, dramatically. "Bravo," I whispered. "This is only Act 1. DJ Vibe, blissfully unaware of the brewing storm, played the wedding march but accidentally mixed it with Baby Shark. Infants started dancing, toddlers went berserk, and Dexter, poor hapless Dexter, slipped on a rogue balloon, his knees meeting the tile floor in the manner that could only be described as cartoonishly tragic. The crowd roared with laughter. Even Grandma Mabel's knitting cat flew across the aisle like a furry missile. I leaned to Max. And this, my dear, is just the rehearsal dinner of chaos. By the time the ceremony ended, Dexter had managed to photobomb every single picture, trip over at least 3 strategically placed toys, accidentally squirted punch on a group of unsuspecting bridesmaids, and get a slice of cake smashed in his face by Biscuit, who thought it was a frisbee. But yet, somehow, he still believed he was winning. Little did he know, every guest was in on the plan. Every sneeze, every slip, every glitter explosion was meticulously prearranged. We weren't just surviving Dexter, we were orchestrating a symphony of chaos, starring him as the unwitting lead. By the time the evening rolled around, I realized something profound. Weddings aren't just about love, they're about humor, strategy, pets, glitter, balloons, cake, and the absolute absurdity of life. Dexter, poor Dexter, had no idea what he'd unleashed. The morning sun spilled through the stained glass windows, illuminating the wedding hall in golden brilliance. Or at least, that's what the photographers thought. In reality, it was more like a battlefield. Confetti cannons lurked behind every floral arrangement, rogue balloons swayed menacingly from the ceiling, and Dexter was poised for dramatic havoc. I, Luna, stood at the front of the aisle, holding Max's hand, wearing a smile that was equal parts serenity and suppressed laughter. Remember, everyone knows the plan. This is our first act of coordinated chaos. Dexter is about to discover that weddings are dangerous. Max nodded, trying not to trip on his perfectly polished shoes. He'd been rehearsing calm groom face for weeks, which, surprisingly, didn't include reacting to glitter in the face, rogue puppies, or accidental cake encounters. Dexter made his entrance in the most villainous way possible. Sunglasses on, a backpack suspiciously heavy with potential disasters, and an expression that screamed, "I will ruin everything and somehow still look heroic." Nina, my ever-prepared maid of honor, was already holding the confetti cannon like a baton. Tommy crouched with Biscuit, ready to unleash furry chaos at the precise moment Dexter tried to sneak toward the cake. Grandma Mabel, knitting needles poised like ninja weapons, gave him a threatening glare that could curdle milk. The first attempt at sabotage came immediately. Dexter stepped on the first strategically placed whoopee cushion. The hall erupted with a cartoonish bloop sound. Dexter flailed dramatically, arms flailing, almost knocking over the chandelier. I tried to hide a laugh behind my bouquet. "Oh, He's good. Very dramatic. Dexter quickly recovered, trying to regain his villainous composure. He declared, "A minor setback. I am a master of chaos." Biscuit disagreed. The dog bolted from Tommy's crouch, tackled Dexter's legs, and sent him tripping into the flower girl's basket. Fake butterflies and rose petals flew everywhere. Dexter's expression was priceless. Glitter in his hair, petals in his bow tie, and a complete lack of dignity. Nina hit the confetti cannon trigger with impeccable timing. Glitter exploded, covering Dexter from head to toe. He tried to brush it off, but only succeeded in spreading it further. Guests laughed so hard, some nearly fell off their chairs. Grandma Mabel slowly shook her head. "It's beautiful, poetic even." The ceremony proceeded with minor adjustments for the chaos. The officiant, Dr. Pemberton, tried valiantly to maintain order, but the hall was now a stage for Dexter's cartoonish disasters. Every step he took was a calculated risk, and a calculated laugh for the audience. Dexter attempted a photobomb maneuver. He tiptoed behind Max during our vows, waving at the camera with a manic grin. But Nina had anticipated this. She quietly nudged a balloon release mechanism. Hundreds of neon balloons descended from the ceiling, landing perfectly on Dexter, pinning him gently but firmly. The crowd roared. Dexter struggled to escape the balloon trap, but Biscuit was ready. The dog jumped, landing squarely on Dexter's backpack, causing confetti to explode from the overstuffed compartments. Dexter attempted a heroic leap to freedom and collided with the punch bowl. Punch splashed dramatically, some landing on Grandma Mabel, who only scowled and adjusted her glasses. "Stylish entrance, Dexter," I murmured, keeping a straight face. Max nearly choked on his vows, trying not to laugh. At one point, a rogue balloon popped near the DJ booth. DJ Vibe, ever the enthusiastic disaster magnet, jumped back, accidentally switching the wedding march with Baby Shark on full volume. Toddlers began to dance uncontrollably. Guests scrambled to catch flying petals, rogue balloons, and now children doing the Macarena mid-aisle. Dexter, trying to appear menacing, tripped over a toddler's toy scooter and crashed into the dessert table, sending mini cupcakes flying. Somehow, he managed to grab a cupcake. He raised it like a trophy and took a dramatic bite, only for Biscuit to leap again and knock the cupcake from his hand. The dog ran circles around him, barking, while Dexter spun like a windmill in slow motion. The scene could have been an animation cell from a slapstick cartoon. The guests were in full-on chaos mode, each participating in the comedic ballet we had orchestrated. Aunts and uncles strategically, accidentally dropped napkins that caused Dexter to slip. Cousins tossed glitter packets in perfect arcs. Even Grandma Mabel contributed by tipping over a small vase, narrowly missing Dexter's head. Max and I exchanged glances, sharing an internal giggle. He's a master of disaster, but we are the directors of comedy. Then came the vows segment. Dexter, thinking he might disrupt emotional poignancy, attempted to block my view by standing behind the officiant, waving his arms dramatically. I calmly recited my vows, every word dripping with sarcasm. "Max, I promise to love you, even when the ex of doom appears at our wedding, covered in glitter, tripping over puppies, and attempting karaoke mid-aisle. I promise to laugh with you at everything Dexter tries, which is apparently everything." The crowd erupted in laughter. Dexter tried to protest, but slipped on a rogue rose petal, fell forward, and landed face first in a decorative fountain. Water splashed across nearby guests. He sputtered, his glasses fogged, his dignity completely dissolved. Biscuit barked triumphantly from the edge of the fountain, tail wagging like a furry metronome. By the time the ceremony concluded, Dexter had
tripped over every strategically placed obstacle, been drenched in punch and fountain water, lost multiple sunglasses, been covered in confetti, glitter, rose petals, and cupcakes, and yet he still stood, somehow convinced he was in control. As we walked down the aisle, hand in hand, I whispered to Max, "This is just the opening act. The reception will be the full symphony." Max smiled. "And we have the perfect orchestra." Indeed, the orchestra consisted of Biscuit, our chaos canine, Grandma Mabel, the side-eye of doom, Nina, confetti cannon master, Tommy, the hyper ring bearer, and every guest armed with improvised chaos tools. The first battle with Dexter had been won, but the war was far from over. The reception hall gleamed with elegance. At least that's what the decorators had hoped for. In reality, it looked like a cross between a palace and a slapstick comedy stage. Confetti sparkled on the floor, balloons hung precariously from the ceiling, and the cake, a 7-tier masterpiece, loomed in the center like an unsuspecting fortress waiting to be breached. I, Luna, floated gracefully, or as gracefully as one can float, while eyeing an X with a history of catastrophic entrances, toward the dance floor. Max was beside me, adjusting his bow tie for the 15th time. Remember, we let Dexter start, we let him think he's in control, and then we unleash chaos. Dexter, of course, had arrived early, already surveying the scene like a villain in a Saturday morning cartoon. His backpack rattled ominously. Inside, I imagined, were all the tools a disaster artist could desire. Confetti poppers, rubber chickens, and perhaps even a small fog machine. Nina, maid of honor and chaos coordinator extraordinaire, nodded at me. She had a plan for every possible Dexter mishap, from rogue cupcakes to glitter bombs timed with the first note of karaoke. The first act of the reception began with cake reconnaissance. Dexter tiptoed toward the cake table like a cartoon cat sneaking past a sleeping dog. Biscuit, ever vigilant, immediately identified him as the target. The dog lunged, and Dexter flailed, arms windmilling, legs tangling with tablecloths. The first cupcake went airborne, frosting soaring like a comet across the hall. Guests ducked, laughed, and cheered. Dexter attempted to regain composure, wiping frosting from his glasses. "Just a minor setback," he announced, unaware that every single guest had rehearsed countermeasures. Grandma Mabel adjusted her glasses, muttering about kids these days, as she tripped a strategically placed napkin, sending Dexter sliding into a punch bowl. The punch splashed spectacularly. DJ Vibe, never missing a beat, cranked the volume on Baby Shark at double speed. Toddlers went wild. Guests slipped on puddles of punch and frosting, colliding in slow-motion slapstick glory. Dexter, sputtering, attempted to stand, only to be met with a barrage of glitter bombs. Nina hit the confetti cannon trigger with impeccable timing. Glitter exploded, covering Dexter head to toe. He tried to swipe it off, only to spread it further onto his bow tie and backpack. By now, his expression was a masterpiece of bewilderment, frustration, and sheer disbelief.
The next morning, I woke up with glitter still clinging to my eyelashes and frosting mysteriously in my hair. But there was no time to reminisce about the previous day's chaos, because the balloon war was about to begin. And yes, I mean a full-scale cartoonish balloon war, the kind that would make a Pixar animator's hearts explode with envy. Max and I arrived at the reception hall early, surveying the battlefield. Neon balloons hung like sentinels from the ceiling, some tied to tables, others floating freely, bobbing ominously. They were rigged, of course, strategically positioned to cascade down at precisely the wrong moment. Biscuit crouched on the floor, tail wagging like a furry metronome, eyes locked on Dexter, who had somehow survived yesterday's frosting fiasco and now appeared to be plotting revenge from a corner. Dexter, naturally, had his own arsenal. Rubber chickens, more confetti poppers, a sparkly kazoo, and somehow a small fog machine. He looked like a villain straight out of a Saturday morning cartoon, smug, overconfident, and completely oblivious to what was about to happen. Nina approached me with a clipboard, holding a wand that triggered confetti cannons. Phase 5, she said, eyes gleaming. This is the big one. Balloon liberation. The war begins. I sipped my coffee, trying to remain composed. Beautiful. Let him think he's in control. Let him step on the first balloon. Dexter, of course, stepped exactly where we wanted him to. Pop! The first balloon erupted, beneath his foot, bouncing him slightly off balance. He flailed, arms spinning like a windmill in a hurricane. Glitter cannons fired simultaneously from 3 directions, covering him head to toe. Biscuit launched the second wave. He sprinted past the buffet, launched himself into Dexter's legs, and sent him stumbling into the center of the room. Dexter attempted to regain composure, only to crash into a table with a miniature chocolate fountain. Chocolate sprayed everywhere, some landing on the nearest guest, who dramatically pretended to faint in comedic horror. Grandma Mabel, knitting needles poised, delivered her perfect side-eye. Dexter froze mid-flail, realizing he might have underestimated her. He tried to tiptoe toward a balloon cluster for cover, only to step on a strategically placed mini whoopee cushion. The sound echoed like a trumpet of doom. Nina hit another confetti cannon trigger. Glitter exploded, covering Dexter's backpack and creating a sparkling rainbow trail as he attempted to flee. A rogue balloon bounced off his head, ricocheted into the chandelier, and caused a minor cascade of faux flowers that landed perfectly on his shoulders. "Bravo," I whispered to Max. "Absolutely beautiful choreography." The guests fully embraced the chaos. Aunts, uncles, cousins, and even the caterers joined in the balloon battle. Some threw balloons at Dexter, others launched confetti grenades, and a few toddlers used cupcakes as ammo, strategically, of course. The hall resembled an animated war zone, balloons ricocheting, cupcakes flying, confetti in the air like magical snow, and Dexter desperately trying to maintain some semblance of dignity. At one point, Dexter tried a heroic leap toward the exit, only to collide with Tommy and Biscuit. The dog latched onto his pants leg, dragging him into a spinning pile of balloons. Dexter screamed dramatically, flipping like a cartoon character caught in a wind tunnel. Guests clapped, laughed, and filmed every moment for posterity and for future viral fame. DJ Vibe, never missing a cue, switched the music mid-chaos. Flight of the Bumblebee, remixed with comical kazoo noises, blasted through the hall. Dexter froze mid-scream, trying to identify the source of the ridiculous soundtrack. I swear he looked genuinely horrified. Meanwhile, Max and I took the high ground. Literally. On a balcony overlooking the chaos, we sipped champagne and coordinated the next wave. "Glitter bombs," I instructed. "Third table on the left. Launch on my signal." Nina's finger hovered over the trigger. "Ready." "Now!" I yelled. Glitter exploded. Balloons popped. Dexter flailed like a marionette with snapped strings. Biscuit barked triumphantly, chasing his nemesis across the hall. Dexter attempted to climb a chair for escape, only to bounce him on a strategically placed mini whoopee cushion. The sound echoed like a trumpet of doom. Confetti exploded once more, blanketing Dexter from head to toe. Balloons and confetti careened through the cupcake ammo zone, creating a kaleidoscope of colors. By now, Dexter had been covered in frosting, chocolate, glitter, and flower petals, tripped, flailed, and spun like a cartoon villain, chased by a golden retriever, bombarded by cupcakes, balloons, and confetti. And yet, he still thought he had a chance. Bless him.
The final act of balloon pandemonium involved a coordinated release from the ceiling. Hundreds of balloons descended, some filled with glitter, others with confetti. Dexter tried to dodge, but it was hopeless. Balloons bounced off him, some popped spectacularly, covering him in even more sparkling chaos. Tommy and Biscuit coordinated a final attack. The dog lunged, tripping Dexter into a punch bowl. Punch splashed over his shoulders, arms, and face. Dexter flailed like a marionette with snapped strings. He attempted one last heroic leap straight into a confetti cannon trigger. Glitter erupted in a perfect, sparkling explosion. He was now a glittering, dripping, cupcake-covered disaster. Max and I descended to the dance floor, surveying the scene. Dexter lay in the center, utterly defeated, glitter in his hair, frosting dripping from his bow tie, balloons tangled around him. Biscuit barked triumphantly. Grandma Mabel shook her head, muttering, "Kids these days." Nina recorded the entire spectacle, promising to immortalize it as the epic wedding chaos video. I whispered to Max, "And that, my love, is how you orchestrate a masterpiece." Max grinned. "Shall we dance?" We began our first dance amid the chaos. Guests cheered, clapped, and laughed. Toddlers performed impromptu dance moves. Biscuit ran laps around the dance floor, balloons bouncing along for the ride. Dexter attempted one final heroic pose, only to trip over a trailing ribbon and collapse into the fountain once more. It was perfect. The chaos, the slapstick, the laughter, it all culminated in an unforgettable wedding dance. Dexter's cartoonish defeat was complete. After the dance, I took a moment to observe. Guests were hugging, laughing, and sharing stories of the chaotic battles. Dexter, still glitter-covered, approached me. I tried," he groaned. I leaned down, patting his glittery shoulder. "Dexter, you tried, but some things are bigger than revenge. Cupcakes, balloons, and a golden retriever named Biscuit." He groaned again, flopped into a chair, and muttered something about never attending another wedding. Max took my hand. "We did it," he whispered. "We survived the chaos." I smiled. "We didn't just survive, we created a legend." And with that, the dance floor erupted in laughter, confetti, cupcakes, and sparkling balloons. Our wedding had reached its comedic climax. The morning after the reception, the wedding hall looked like a battlefield where a glitter tornado, cupcake explosion, and balloon apocalypse had all collided. Streamers hung from chandeliers like limp noodles, balloons floated half-deflated across the floor, and the cake, the 7-tier masterpiece, was now a multi-textured art piece of frosting, crumbs, and confetti. I sipped my coffee, surveying the chaos with satisfaction. Max appeared beside me, brushing stray glitter from his lapel. "Do you think Dexter survived?" he asked. I raised an eyebrow, smirking. "Define survive. He's alive, yes. Dignity, not so much." Dexter, predictably, was slumped against a balloon arch, glitter crusted in his hair, frosting stuck to his bow tie, and chocolate smudged across his face. He looked like a villain from a children's cartoon who had just lost the battle to the protagonists, and every guest knew it. The first order of post-wedding business, final guest antics. Aunt Marge decided to reenact Dexter's fall into the fountain, slipping intentionally on a rogue puddle for dramatic effect. Cousin Leo attempted to juggle balloons while navigating the confetti-covered dance floor, ultimately crashing into a dessert cart. Tommy and Biscuit, sensing that their chaos quota wasn't yet fulfilled, ran laps around the hall, knocking over more decorations and sending balloons bouncing in all directions. Grandma Mabel, knitting needles still in hand, approached Dexter. Her side eye glared through his glittered, frosting-covered, utterly humiliated face. "Sonny," she said, You should consider a career in slapstick. It suits you." Dexter groaned, completely defeated. I tried." "Yes, you did. You tried to ruin the wedding, and instead, you became the star of comedy history." He attempted to retort, but Biscuit, seizing the moment, leapt onto his lap, knocking him backward into a pile of deflated balloons. Dexter yelped, the balloons squeaked, and his last shred of composure vanished. Next came the wedding wrap-up, which in our scenario was less about formalities and more about chaos management. Guests began retrieving rogue cupcakes, tying stray ribbons, and salvaging balloons that were still somehow floating mid-air. DJ Vibe, exhausted but triumphant, played a celebratory remix of "We Are the Champions," mashed with kazoo and drum beats. Max and I surveyed the scene, clinking champagne glasses. "Do you realize that we have officially orchestrated the most chaotic, cartoonish, and hysterical wedding in history?" I said. Max laughed, and we survived it, mostly intact. We made our way to the cake, which was now less a dessert and more a sculpture of comedic battle. I raised a fork. To Dexter. May his future wedding attempts involve fewer cupcakes and more dignity. Dexter, ever resilient in delusion, attempted one last heroic act. He climbed onto a table, raised a soggy balloon in victory, and proclaimed, "I will have my revenge." Biscuit, sensing a final opportunity, sprinted. The dog launched himself onto Dexter's back, causing him to topple into a stack of chairs, which collapsed in domino fashion. A confetti cannon fired accidentally from under the table, coating him in even more sparkling chaos. Grandma Mabel shook her head. "Never underestimate the power of puppies, napkins, and the side eye of doom," she muttered. Dexter, lying flat on the floor, glitter covered, frosting dripping, and balloons tangled around him, finally admitted defeat. "Okay, I give up," he muttered. "You win." I smiled. "We didn't just win, we created a legend." Finally, the epilogue of chaos. The Biscuit became an overnight celebrity on social media for his heroic antics. Dexter's glittery, frosting-covered face made it into wedding memes for weeks. The guests remembered the wedding not for elegance, but for laughter, slapstick, and unmatched chaos. Max and I held hands, smiling at the scene of glorious destruction. Our wedding was perfect, not in the traditional sense, but perfect in every way that mattered. Even Dexter eventually laughed, albeit begrudgingly, realizing that his cartoonish villainy had brought the entire hall together in shared hilarity. The golden retrievers, glitter, balloons, and rogue cupcakes had triumphed over chaos. As we drove away from the reception, leaving behind a hall glittering with confetti, frosting, and memories, I leaned over to Max. "Do you think anyone will ever top this wedding?" I asked. Max grinned. "Not unless they bring more puppies." I laughed, glitter catching the light, frosting still on my hand, and felt a profound truth. Weddings aren't about perfection. They're about laughter, chaos, and the joy of shared absurdity. Dexter, somewhere in the distance, vowed silently to himself, next time he would be ready. But somehow I doubted anyone or anything could surpass the chaos we had created. And that, my friends, was the glorious, chaotic, cartoonish finale of our wedding, complete with cupcakes, balloons, glitter, puppies, and a defeated ex who had become the star of comedic history.